Apyayantu mamangani Vakpranashchakshushrotramatho balamindriyani cha sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranam Astvanirakaranam Me Astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mayi Santu Te Mayi Santu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So far we've seen that time and space and objects, all of this reduces into concepts, and concepts ultimately reduce into awareness, and the relationship between concept and awareness is a satya mithya relationship. And then we pose the question, if attributeless awareness, which is the reality, and it doesn't have any attributes whatsoever, it's formless, then how do you produce a world full of attributes out of that? And to resolve that contradiction, you have to bring an intervening factor, which is by saying that this awareness enjoys the capacity, enjoys the potential to manifest time, space, and objects. And this capacity to manifest the world is called Maya. Maya just means capacity to manifest. And when this capacity actually manifests, then that very same capacity, which is of the nature of knowledge and power, gains a new name, which is Ishvara. You can also say it another way and say that awareness, which is the final reality, consciousness, which is known to you right now as I am, the presence because of which you're able to hear these words. As we said before, Brahman is that which reveals sounds, that in whose presence sounds become known. And since all of these sounds are known to I, from your standpoint, by definition, then whatever your I is must be thus Brahman. Because the verse said, Brahman, awareness, is that in whose presence sounds are revealed. And therefore, this awareness now can gain a new name, Brahman can gain a new name and call it Maya in reference to its potential to manifest. And that same awareness can gain another name called Ishvara in reference to when the world is manifest. So this means when the world finally manifests, then awareness gains a new name just for the sake of helping the student understand what is going on. And we say awareness becomes the creator of the world, creator of the universe. In other words, becomes the cause of the universe. And we have another name for that, Ishvara. In English, God. Okay? So when we speak of Ishvara, what that just means is the cause of the universe. In other words, it is awareness with its potential activated and manifesting constantly. Okay? So it's not like there's two different things, like Ishvara is one thing and awareness is another thing and Maya is another thing. It's one reality gaining different names to explain what is going on at any one moment. Just like you have an eye is an eye, but to explain the eye, you got 10,000 terms, 10,000 names and names upon names upon names. And the thing is, only once you hear those names and you see how they are all connected, right? The retina, the pupil, the vein, right? The nerves, the optical center. Once you kind of analyze all of them and you get to know them all, then 10,000 names you've studied, and now you really understand the eye. You understand the physical eye. So you had to go through the process to the medical degree and understand all of these terms. And once you finish, you say, wow, now I really understand the eye. In that same way, the whole reality is nothing like one total unit, one total reality. And to understand that reality, the scriptures have to bring out different names. They have to create these names and then point out what are these names in reference to. And they cannot just be random names. They have to be something that you can relate to every single moment of your experience, such as consciousness. And then you say, what is consciousness? And then we say, consciousness is that because of which you're able to hear these sounds. So whatever is allowing these sounds to be heard right now, it's not because of your mind. Yes, your mind is involved to receive the sounds. There's sound waves entering the ear. The ear has to vibrate those hairs. The vibrations of the hairs have to convert into electrical impulses going to the brain, and then the brain has to communicate with the mind, and then the mind has to draw particular sounds as to what this means. Have I heard this in the future? It has to access the memory. Memory brings that over into the present moment. The present moment then assesses, what is this sound? Is it the right sound that I need to hear? Could it be like this? Could it be like that? It's a whole computer going on at once. And the whole system is being lit up by I am, who is constantly available in and through the functionings, the workings, the calculations, the emotings of this instrument which you've been endowed called your name. And thereby, Vedanta thus becomes knowledge. What's the difference between knowledge and belief? A belief is something like saying there is heaven, but you cannot prove it, nor can you disprove it, because it is not here right now. But when I point out something that is right here and now, then it is no longer a belief, it becomes knowledge. Thereby we say that the presence because of which you're able to recognize these sounds is constant as I am, that is here now. And the potential for a new thought to arise in 5 minutes from now, that is guaranteed going to happen. Therefore, that potential we call Maya. Potential for your body to be one day older, for potential for your scar to heal, all of that is there. The potential for the flower to change its petals, to develop new petals, to change its fragrance, depending on the seasons. All of that is already in potential, waiting for the right moment to come. Thus, it can show its new manifestations, which right now are yet to come. Just like in a seed, there is a potential for a tree, and if you give it the right constituents and you give it the right amount of time, what's going to happen? It's going to start to show, manifest that potential which was there, just waiting for the right amount of time to come by. In that same way, potential you cannot see, but because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there. Okay. Therefore, nobody was there before the universe came. Nobody was there to document what happened before the Big Bang. No one was there like journaling, and this happened and that happened. The only way that you can thus explain what happened is by showing what was before the Big Bang, before time, space, is exactly here and now. What was before? I am. We've already explained that your I am is attributeless. If it were to have attributes, then you would have to say that your I am has some kind of a function or some feature that my I am doesn't. In that case, I would ask you the question, what feature does your I am have? And you would have to say some feature about your I am, but that feature always has been learned. It depends on language, it depends on your idea, and the moment you stop communicating that, you could have amnesia tomorrow. And then I ask you again, what's your definition of I am? Well, I don't know, something else. In other words, awareness always remains attributeless. That's the only way it can reveal, it can report new attributes, new thoughts, new emotions constantly 24/7. The intelligence because of which a form is a form, making that form what it is right here, right now. The potential for that form to be something different is right here, right now. How do we know? Because things are always changing. And they're not changing randomly, they are a consistent change. There is a consistent change. So it's not like today you're a human being and tomorrow you're a horse. The changes are congruent because there is an intelligent order behind the changes. Okay? Now, suppose I ask you, why do we have creation? Listen to the question carefully. Let's see how well we've understood. Why do we have creation? Why do we have creation? There's different ways to answer this. How would you answer this question? There's so many ways to answer this ordinary question. Why do we have creation? Why do we have the universe? Why do we have all of this?
Why not? Because of Maya.
Okay, because of Maya, because of this potential. Okay.
Yeah, well, for jivas to work out their karma.
Okay. For us to work out our desires, to be on this planet and play and, do whatever is necessary.
To find yourself, to look what you really are. You need all those concepts, all those things that is to see that to go back to yourself, to your true self.
Yeah, so that is according to the scriptures, that's the highest purpose for the jiva's life on or in this world. But it doesn't necessarily say why is there creation, because you might as well just go without creation. We could have gone without creation. Why?
Because the truth, the reality is limitlessness. So why not the creation?
So what Simon is saying is that since reality is limitless, then if you deny it the potential to manifest itself as Dvaita, as duality, then it's no longer limitless. Therefore, a limitless reality by definition, right, cannot be denied the option of manifesting itself as apparent many.
But still, the question is why?
Yeah, that's an answer.
And not for the purpose of the jivas, but for the whole.
Without creation, Brahman would never know itself.
Why is there chair? What chair? What chair? The thing is wood. Why is there wood? Why wood? What wood? It's atoms. Why is there atoms? What atoms? It's quarks. Why is there quarks? What quarks? It's concepts. Why is there concepts? What concepts? There's only awareness. What creation? The whole thing is just one. There's no creation. It's just appearance of creation. So when you ask why creation, it shows you where you're thinking. Because all that is here is one right now. And if I ask, why do I see that mirage? Why do I see the snake? Why is there a snake on that rope? Well, because the snake needs to work out its karma, needs to work out its stuff. What snake? The snake is only an appearance of my ignorance of the rope. When I see the rope, I don't ask the question, why snake? Why creation? There's only one reality manifesting as I am, I am, I am. This is called nididhyasanam, asking a question and then thinking about it. Why? And whatever you answer simply shows you where you're operating from. So this means there's no right or wrong. This is called nididhyasanam, contemplation. The point is not to kind of, expose this or that. It's just to show you what self-reflection, what self-inquiry means. Okay? It requires thinking about it.
It's the same with why is moksha? What moksha? Same thing. Yeah, like why creation? Why moksha? Because if you see that all there's one, there was never a limited to
Yeah, of course.
can't be a liberation for
Good. Now that question, right, why moksha would only be asked by someone who is yet to see that there is a reconciliation of all of these realities and they all resolve into one. So therefore there is a reason to ask that question, but that question evolves the more we understand. Okay? Now I want to add one more thing. What is the relationship between Maya and Ishvara? Okay, to understand this a little bit better, because there are two words and you're like, can I get a little bit more understanding of, right? We've got awareness, we've got Maya, and we've got Ishvara. Can you help me just a little bit more clarity? Okay, so once I heard this, some students said this, and I thought it was brilliant. They said, if you take a woman, the essence of a woman is always a woman. She is a conscious being. She's a woman. And this woman enjoys the capacity to manifest a child. And suppose the woman's name is, now in reference to her capacity to manifest a child, you could say this capacity is called her Maya capacity. Now when the woman has finally the child, when she creates the child, then the woman gains a new name called mother. So it's still the same woman, it's still female. Now, whether she has the child, whether the woman exercises her potential to have a child or not, does that define the essence of womanhood? No. Woman is woman, a conscious being. In reference to her capacity to manifest, she could be called Maya. When she finally manifests the child, even though she's still woman, just for the sake of giving her a name in reference to her child, she can be called Ishvara. But it's the same conscious being. Now, like this, in the Upanishads, we also sometimes interchange. We say, Ishvara is all that is here is awareness, which enjoys the capacity to manifest the universe, and this capacity is knowledge and power. Now, before the universe came, this capacity was Maya. When this capacity manifests, and while it's manifesting, it's called Ishvara. This is one way to look at it. But other Upanishads would say that both Maya and Ishvara are simultaneous. That means knowledge power in unmanifest is Maya, and knowledge power in manifest is Ishvara. So whichever way you look at it, whether before the universe, Maya, and after universe, that same knowledge power is Ishvara, or right now you say, this very moment that's manifesting is Ishvara, and the next moment that is yet to manifest is Maya, it absolutely doesn't matter. Upanishads would say both ways. The point is both Maya and Ishvara are knowledge and power. Okay? Just like some other Upanishads would say that upon death, your mind dissolves and a new mind is born. Some other Upanishads would say upon death, your mind is reprogrammed and then you just continue your life. It doesn't really matter. The point is there's a mind. The reason I'm bringing this out is because if you sort of look at different texts, you say, well, why are they saying it that way? And they're saying it this way. They're all pointing you to the same reality. They just want to show you you cannot get stuck thinking one way and thinking it's always supposed to be like that. Because the moment someone brings it slightly from a different angle, you get all ruffled up. Like, oh, I can't reconcile this. To understand is to be able to look at it from every angle and thus reconcile things. It's like this with anything, isn't it? If I give you, a little bit of some cooking, so and I give you salt and I give you, pastry and I give you water and I give you salt, and you can start from anywhere, right? You may take the pastry and then whatever order you want, you'll still make the same cake. Why? Because you understand how to make the cake. Therefore, in that same way, the reason why we have so many Upanishads so that we can loosen up our rigidity about how things are supposed to be, that rigidity has to go. I have to be able to look at it from different angles and still reconcile awareness, Maya, Ishvara, and Jiva. It's all one reality from different names and forms. Okay. We also said that Maya and Ishvara are, in Sanskrit, Pravaha Nityatvam. Pravaha is a river and Nityatvam is eternal. So both of them are like an eternal river just flowing. Knowledge power eternally manifesting, unmanifesting, manifesting, unmanifesting. Within this manifest and unmanifest, time comes, time dissolves, universe is born, universe dissolves. So how many universes were before this one? How many universes were before this one? This is just one of the trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions of universes that we've had. Think about the vastness of this. One moment, 13.5 billion years of many, many cycles of creation. And it will never end. This is the glory of Ishvara. It just keeps on generating universes and it never stops. And you're just one little speck. We're just one little speck amongst many, many cycles of universes that have come before us. There were so many people before, billions upon billions of years ago, 20 trillion years ago, and will continue to be 20 trillion years from now. It's just mind-boggling to think about it this way. Therefore, Ishvara never goes away. It is anadi. It is beginningless. It is also eternal.
Bottom line is Brahman is a reality unchanging, and the appearance and the description of the appearance that may differ. We can see it from different angles, in different ways it's being explained, but bottom line is it is an appearance. Is that the right way of understanding?
To say the last part, both?
Appearance. So Maya, the description of
Right,
Maya,
right.
It's appearance.
Yeah, appearance.
Yes.
Yeah, good. I just didn't catch that last word. Yes. So it's all, understand, it's one appearing as different standpoints. That is just how the setup is. That's just how it is. I already said this last session. So the more you understand this, the more you let go of the idea that the appearance is supposed to be something else. It's supposed to be something different. Like, welcome to the setup. Not setup as in, you've been set up, you've been tricked. Not that kind of setup, but this is the design. This is the design.
Just one question. When Ishvara is Nitya, then it must be final.
What is Ishvara? So there's one reality which enjoys the potential to manifest the universe. When the universe manifests, it manifests you right now. When you ask who created this universe, Vedanta says Ishvara. So what is Ishvara? Ishvara is awareness with its potential to manifest. Manifesting. So the potential is right now manifesting the world right now. It's manifesting you, the body. Okay? So Ishvara is nothing but awareness manifesting by the help of Maya, by the help of knowledge power. Okay? So yes, there is a mithya because the potential does depend upon the awareful being, doesn't it? Just like when you dream. What happens when you dream? Well, your potential manifests the dream world. And that dream, that potential, knowledge power, depends upon you, the awareful being. So wherever you look in that dream, where can you not find yourself? Nowhere. You can look underneath, up, down, left, right. The whole thing is you. But the whole thing is you by the help of your own power to manifest. So what I want to show you is that yes, Ishvara is this potential, knowledge power, okay, is mithya because it depends upon you, the awareful being, Okay, just like the dream world depends upon you, the awareful being, but it's not away from you. It's not two different things. And what is the final truth into which everything collapses? That which is known to you as I am, I am, I am. Okay, what is the whole Big Bang thing? The Big Bang is nothing but knowledge appearing as a Big Bang. Concepts appearing as Big Bang. Just like when you go to sleep and your dream comes, that is the Big Bang on an individual scale. On a macrocosmic scale, it's just I am, one I am, who enjoys the capacity to manifest the world, and the total I am, boom, Big Bang, hello. Big Bang, so Big Bang is the creation of a new universe, and it lasts, and then it again dissolves. And then we don't know how long because, there's no time, and then a new one comes. Okay, like this eternally. See, there's this Western idea that creation is linear, right? It starts here and it ends here. This is why they cannot answer the basic questions like what came first, the father or the son, the seed or the tree, the chicken or the egg. And this is supposed to be sort of a big question. It's not a big question at all. It's because the model with which they're operating is it starts, it ends, boom. But we don't have this model in the Vedas. It is as though circular. Now, if it's circular, when did it begin? Where can you find a beginning in a circle? Always been going on like this. This is what beginningless means. It never began at one point. So in other words, it is one eternal existence. Within this one eternal existence, Big Bang comes, Big Bang dissolves. Big Bang comes, Big Bang dissolves. And in one of those Big Bangs, you are born. Here you are now. And until you recognize your nature as the one changeless being, you will keep coming back into new Big Bangs all the time. So the whole point is to no longer be born in a Big Bang.
Maybe you could also see it like in Brahman is attributed. So there's no time.
Yeah.
You could also say that there's always a Big Bang going on, an apparent Big Bang. In the immediate, if you look from the standpoint of no time.
Again, there's no such a thing as time, please. Understand this. All that is here is knowledge appearing as changes. What is time? Time is something that we attribute in reference to this happening, changing, from here to here to this to this to this, and the amount of changes that an object changes, the amount of changes that it undergoes, we say, it went through 5 minutes worth of time. So even time is just a name of something in reference to the changes, the amount of changes that we observe. If we observe a tree going from yellow to green, we say, it took about 3 months. But the whole thing was just knowledge appearing as green, as yellow, as this and that. And for the sake of relating, for the sake of transacting, we have to give it, quote, time. There's no such thing as, quote, actual creation or Big Bang or this. These are just names for how this knowledge power is constantly reshuffling itself, constantly rearranging itself.
So no creation, but appearance.
Yeah, so it's an appearance by the help of knowledge power. Were the knowledge power not there, there would be no, quote, appearance. There will be no appearance. Okay? However, yes, awareness has the capacity to manifest, so this is what we have to deal with while we are, in this sort of sitting on the chair, and it's all so real. Okay? So moksha thus is to say, this is all wonderful, but I choose to get out. Not that there is any way to get out, but I choose to remain as the cause of the universe. I no longer want to come back as one single wave in the ocean. I want to remain as both the ocean and the water. Therefore, even when you are liberated, you still have to wait for your wave to crash. Only then you can appreciate your true self as the one limitless self. Right now, while alive, even if you're you know who you are, you will still experience limitation, but cognitively you understand that limitation is only because of this upadhi. Upadhi, in other words, this suit that I'm wearing right now. So don't think now, oh, so liberated person, feels themselves, they're all over the place. No. We said sopadika atyasa, when you understand that the nature of this body-mind is concepts, and these concepts dissolve into awareness, which is known to you as I am right now, even if you understand that, there's no change in experience whatsoever. Only cognitive understanding changes. Just like, oh, okay, it's not the sun that's going up and down, it's the earth that's revolving. It's not a big deal. Only those things that were not there before and are suddenly produced now, only they give an experience. But those things that you knew about all along, and everyone knows about I am, don't they? They just don't know what this I am is. So how can you be excited about discovering about I am when you already knew about it all along? I just now discovered that the I am is much more than bound to this body-mind. That's an understanding, but I haven't produced anything. I've just came in, quote, touch with something that was there all along. Therefore, this jiva, due to Avarana Shakti, as we said last session, Avarana Shakti, so Maya has the power to veil, power to create differences, power to create colors and shapes and forms and hatred and love and emotions and, ups and downs and variety. This is lovely. There's nothing wrong with duality. It gives you, something to live for, something to, play with. But this Avarana Shakti, when it, in reference to the individual, creates ignorance. And this ignorance manifests as, I don't know who I am, and I don't even know how to walk. Thus, every life you have to learn all of these basic things. So because Avarana Shakti is beginningless, and we just explained, it's as though circular, so nothing ever began. So this means that whoever is here now, listening, including this person now, means that we were in this circular creation, circular manifestation, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. For how long? Since beginningless time. Since beginningless, timeless time. Only one life do you come to the knowledge. Only one life you come to the knowledge. Where the knowledge finally captures you. The tradition grabs you and says, let me now explain. Let us explain what is to be known to help you come out of this constant repetition. And you say, wow, this knowledge makes sense. So this means the jiva, when does the jiva end? Only when you understand that which we are talking about, the constant presence, the constant awareness, and you're in touch with what I'm talking about. You're connecting with my words right now. That means you are recognizing the nature of who you are. Only when you are connecting to the words of what the teacher is saying, what the tradition is saying, that means, aha, I am in touch with the reality. From that moment on, never again can you come back as another individual. Why? Because you have changed your identity from a jiva who has so many stuff to work out, and thus will keep on coming back on and on and on. But I am no longer identified with that person. Therefore, all of the goodies and all of the baddies attached to your jivahood, okay, punyam and papam, all of that is disowned at once. Because it's not mine. You are connecting with that which is constant. In other words, it is disowned. Because that person is not me, the one that's true and true and true and true and true, always the same, always true, always consistent. It's like waking up from a dream. And all of the things, if you ever had a dream, right, where you kind of shot someone and the police, actually I had a dream last night, I was being arrested. So funny. And I was, oh no, why? I need to go and teach tomorrow, I was thinking. So it's a little bit of a lucid dream, right? I was like, why am I having this now? And I was like, oh no, I'm totally identified, I tell you, last night. I remember handcuffs coming around me. Oh, it's so strange, right? In the middle of the retreat, I'm getting arrested. And really, I was like, because I remember my dream so clearly, I was like so worried. I was genuine emotion, genuine concern. I was thinking, no, I want to be free. I want to be free. I don't want to go to jail. I'm really afraid. Totally genuine. And then I woke up, relief. Wow, like genuinely I had a relief. That wasn't me. But in the dream, totally convinced. Wake up, all of that bad stuff, once done, disowned like that. Now, there's a limitation with this example. Like any Vedantic example has a limitation, because now the listener's going to say, so liberation means, right, some different world, right? I'm just going to like see from waking into some, from dream into some waking. No, we said it's soparikatyasa. It's exactly the same. So example has, right, merit, but it has also a limit. And this needs to be pointed out by the teacher. Otherwise, the person's going to start thinking, so there's this one being who's now, Ishvara is like dreaming all of us. No. I started out by explaining the microcosm example to open up the possibility to help you understand by the time I come to the macrocosm example. But I didn't intend to say that there's this one being who's sitting on some mattress, right, in some space and time or without space and time, and they're sort of like now they're dreaming us. No. That was just a potential example to open up an understanding. And then I said, like that, like the dream, awareness enjoys the capacity, just like the wakeful person has the capacity to manifest the dream. In reference to its capacity, it is Maya. When the capacity manifests, then awareness takes on a new name called Ishvara, the creator of the dream. Therefore, I don't intend to make your mind create an image of some person sleeping and dreaming. It's only to open up a possibility to understand. There's this New Age idea of raising collective consciousness. You heard this before? This is never going to happen. We're not here to raise collective consciousness. You're here to understand who you are. Everyone's duty is to understand who they are. That is, as we said, lift yourself by yourself. No one can do it for you. There's no, I remember in the yoga years early on, it was very common belief that there are yogis sitting in the Himalayas. It's all just imagination, who are maintaining the peace of the world. The few yogis, right, with extreme amount of power, sitting down, and because of them, we're all kind of, they're sending good vibes to the rest of us. All bubbles have to pop. Hundreds of bubbles have to pop, one by one. Okay? Just like raising collective consciousness. There's nothing to raise. And even when you understand the knowledge, then if you choose to, you can go and teach it. So there's nothing to be worried about because the whole thing is maintained by Ishvara's order. Ishvara would choose somebody and it will put them to continue this tradition. Shan?
And so the depiction of Vishnu lying on the bottom of the ocean, dreaming the whole existence, is also just to be understood as the metaphor you just pointed out with the dream.
Yeah, that's a beautiful metaphor because we actually see what Shan said. There's Vishnu who's lying down on a serpent, and out of his navel is coming out Brahma. So Vishnu is Brahman, and Brahma is his potential to create. And from Brahma, right, who's sitting on a lotus flower, he is the creator of the world. So it is beautiful cultural depictions to help you kind of understand. Right, it inculcates these notions from very early on, and so you're able to, right, relate a little bit better when you eventually come to the knowledge. So yes, it's really nice. Vishnu, I am, lying, relaxing as myself, as the limitless one. Out of me arises this potential spontaneously to manifest the world. And the world continues to manifest for other jivas, while I remain who I am. And this never ends, because it is in awareness that this potential keeps on manifesting and unmanifesting, and it's never going to stop. So verse 1.2 to 1.8, the question was, what is the presence and its nature? That was the essence of the question. What is this presence, which is Sat and Chit, and what is its nature? Well, it is attributeless, and it is common. It is sadharana. Remember that. And we also talked about Ishvara. Now, so far, the teaching of Vedanta is over. So we have provided you the vision of Vedanta. The following verses will point out some errors that we can walk away with and potentially continue carrying in our minds. So we're going to now address this from a different angle. I'm going to point out the nuances, the very nuances, which can help us add more clarity to this knowledge. Now let's go into verse 2.1. Yadi manyase su veda iti daharam eva api nunam tvam veta brahmanaha rupam yad asya tvam yad asya deve shvata nu mimam syam eva te manye viditam. Teacher says,
if you think I know Brahman very well, then you know only very little of Brahman's nature that is expressed in the human beings and in the gods. Therefore, Brahman is still to be inquired into by you. Disciple, I consider Brahman is known.
so it says here, if you think you know Brahman well, you know Brahman little. If you think you know awareness well, sorry to say, you know awareness little. If you think you know well what was said so far, you know what was said so far very little. Why? Well, because if you know Brahman as an object, okay, then you haven't really got it. And as we said, the mind has a tendency to convert anything that it receives into a very subtle form of object, including Brahman. And then it convinces itself, yep, he made total sense and I have totally got it. So now let's help us correct the possibility of turning awareness into an image. And we said that one way to not fall for this trap is to do a satya-mithya relationship. And we said if you take any form and you analyze any form, then you come to see that it enjoys a satya-mithya relationship. For example, we can say that a flower is made of petals, is made of the fragrance, and it's made of very small parts. Very small parts make up the flower. Each one of those parts make up the total flower. And if you look at any one of those parts, you can break them down and they're made up of smaller parts. And those smaller parts are made up of even smaller parts. And those smaller parts ultimately reduce into atoms. And atoms reduce into concepts. And concepts, everything thus reduces into concepts. And the final analysis becomes between concepts and awareness Brahman. Therefore, that too enjoys a satya-mithya relationship. Okay? You can also say things like the flower carries the potential to be different 2 days from now. So this means Maya is right there. And potential rests in awareness. So again, how do we help ourselves not to fall for this idea that awareness is something of an object? Take any experience. So we keep forms as they are. Leave the flower alone. Leave the fragrance alone. Leave the constituents alone. But understand through cognitive analysis that it's reducible, ultimately reducible to concepts. and concept cannot be outside a conscious being. The second way to help yourself not to fall for this tendency to convert Brahman into a mental image is through an ordinary mental reminder. What kind of mental reminder? Well, wherever my mind goes, what is there? Yeah, the one that is lighting up that thought. So this means you can never think, you can never have a thought outside you. Okay? Even if you say, I forgot what he was talking about, then who is lighting up that experience? The same I, which one moment or the other will be saying, I remember now. Even that is being lit up by the same awareness. Therefore, no situation can take you away from you. Because in the presence of you, whatever cognition, whatever thought is there in your mind, what is right there? I am, I am, I am. And that I am, because of which that thought is being revealed, is being recognized, is the final truth. And you can never objectify it. And if you do feel tempted to objectify it, like, hold on, let me just grasp it, let me grasp it, let me grasp it. What is revealing that attempt to grasp it? Let me grasp it, let me grasp it, let me grasp it. What's revealing that? Let me grasp it. I am. Okay? You can never get out of this logic. So in other words, it is in the presence of I that all of your frustrations are going to happen, all of your ignorances are going to happen, all of your knowledge is going to happen. It never touches that which lights up whatever going on in your mind. Therefore, no longer do we ask ourselves the question, how do I maintain this in my mind? How do I keep this in my mind? Oh, hold on, I need to keep it, I need to keep it, I need to keep it. What is revealing that experience? I am. Okay. Oh, I was so clear at the seminar. Now, right, 5 days after the seminar, 30 days after the seminar, I'm no longer clear. Oh, I wish I could go back to the seminar. What's revealing that experience? I am. So nothing actually got lost. You're still there. And the confusion comes is when that I am gets identified with the thought. That's when you as though forgot. So yes, there's some mental reminder is required. Wait. Yes, I'm identified, but the fact that this experience is known right now, it can only be because of one reality. So yes, initially it is a reminder, and it helps a lot. And eventually it just becomes spontaneous. So yes, there's some practice involved. Okay? And then in reference to other beings, yad asya tvam yad asya deveshu. In other words, what is in you as a jiva, right, making your body, is exactly the same as in a deva. So there are higher beings who are more evolved. They have more refined bodies and minds in different worlds. Okay? And whatever is making, I think in English we call them angels, but we don't use this word in the Veda. We say devas, gods, but not Ishvara, just kind of higher beings. Whatever is sustaining their body, which is intelligence, is exactly sustaining your body, which is intelligence. That deva has a potential to change. That means the Maya is there for that deva, and your body has potential to change, which means Maya is there also for you. So now you say, I'm not even, why should I be concerned about these beings, these higher beings? What are you going to find in them that you're going to find in yourself? Once upon a time, I was into this channeled material, looking at what higher beings, have to say. Because we don't know anything here, just look for the higher beings up there. But when you come to this knowledge, you realize there's nothing that the higher being can tell you, because the intelligence that is sustaining you is the exact same intelligence sustaining those who are 20 million years ahead of us. They may be more sophisticated in thinking, but it's still sustained by the same intelligence. So you lose fascination for exploring worlds, for meeting aliens. You lose all of that. which is great, right? It's like one less burden. Mimamsa. So if you're suppose stuck thinking, what's out there? I need to know this more. What's out there? What's over here? Then verse says, Mimamsyam manye. So in other words, if you're stuck for whatever reason, you're not connecting to my words, suppose, or in the future, it feels like it's weakened, right? It may happen, right? This is the truth. Then what happens? Reality is to be inquired by you. In other words, performing mimamsa. And what is mimamsa? Mimamsa just means inquiry, self-inquiry. What is self-inquiry? Thinking, right? Thinking in the light of this knowledge. Now in Sanskrit, we have a name for this, pramana pravritti. Pramana pravritti. So pramana means means of knowledge, and pravritti means utilizing that means of knowledge. Okay, I don't think I need to write that down. It's very self-explanatory. So utilizing, not just being offered the means of knowledge, but actively utilizing what you're given. Okay? And what is this? And it's like this with anything, isn't it? If you want to study physics, it's also giving you a beautiful means of knowledge. If you want to study mathematics, you have to sit down and learn a certain order. I don't go into division, multiplication, right, until I learn in plus and prime numbers and quadratic equations, until you learn minus and plus. Slowly, 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 we build up. Same thing with Vedanta. Slowly, 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 we keep on building, 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 building. And what is the first step in any means of knowledge, whether it's medicine, physics, science, or Vedanta? It's exactly the same. First is Shravanam. In other words, you sit down in a class, whether university or a private kind of a gathering like this. And what is Shravanam? The teacher wants to communicate a certain reality about something. In this case, the Upanishads. And the teacher wants to help transfer that knowledge to the student. The capacity to how much your mind captures is how much you're able to understand. That's why we sometimes say, I don't understand. So even though you have two people, one person's mind was able to capture it fully. Another person's mind says, I didn't capture that. It's fine. Because Shravana means repeated involvement, repeated. Okay? In other words, we wish to convey what is intended to be conveyed. And that does not take place in one single session, does it? It takes place in multiple repeated sessions. So what is Shravanam? Literally, as you've heard before, I'm sure in Vedanta, what's the literal meaning? Listening. That is the Vashyartha. What is the deeper meaning? Tatparya Nishchaya. Tatparya Nishchaya means while listening, I'm listening for one purpose, deeply ascertaining what I'm hearing. So yes, I'm listening, all right, but for the sake of totally assimilating, I'm committed assimilating what is being listened to. Okay? So this means there's a dedication, an involvement, a motivation. That means there's zest, energy, enthusiasm while listening. Now the question is, how do I know that which I'm listening to is well ascertained? I could be listening to something that has some flaws. After all, we have 6 schools. That's how we started out this course. We've got Vaisheshika, Yoga, Purva, Mimamsa. We've got Sankhya. And they're all considering the Vedas as authoritative texts. So is Advaita Vedanta. This is what we're studying. How do we show which one is telling the right thing? Well, we have debates. This is why we have Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is basically just debates after debates after debates. Logic. Extreme logic, Brahma Sutra. To simply reveal which one has some flaws, because we don't want to get it wrong. We don't want to just sort of be convinced about something that has some flaws. Therefore, when it comes to criticizing, we don't criticize for the sake of being, critical or being sort of, rude. Criticizing is part of in fact, the word criticizing is not right, but more like debating. Debating is part of any field of study. Imagine this, look at this. Suppose classical physics says that time is absolute. But after Einstein, he says that time is relative. Now suppose you say, it's okay. Classical physics says that time is absolute. We say that time is relative. We all have a right to our own opinion. Is this scientific? No, you cannot think like this. Same way with Advaita Vedanta. It's okay. They say that the world is, material and that the world is matter. We say that it's apparently real. We all have a right to our own opinion. The stakes are too high. We're talking about your life here. Therefore, debating has a purpose. When I started out this journey, because I didn't have the right teacher, I was naturally, as some of us can relate, into everything. All sorts of things, all sorts of spiritual things. And what I really appreciate about my first teacher, which is James, was he was able to pinpoint, able to point out those who basically I was reading. Basically 99.9% of the books that I was reading, my first teacher pointed out, no. And I remember coming home, I never, for over 8 years now, over 9 years, I have never, ever opened a single page of all of those books. Not one. Most of them with Ramana Maharishi's and XYZGs. Not one book has been opened. Because I understood immediately, this is all just beginner level stuff. I'm through with this. I want something solid. So really, I appreciate my first teacher's ability to point out strongly where the time could have gone for the next 20, 50 years, who knows. That's how important it is to have that courage to say no. Unfortunately, most who are beginners, when they hear this, they will project onto the teacher and they will not like them. Unfortunately. And they will try to, injure them somehow. It's the most unfortunate thing, and yet it saves the lives of those who are sincere. Because there are some who have been searching and searching and searching and are ready to die to know the truth. And then someone comes into your life and says, this, what you're looking at, this is going to take you nowhere, absolutely nowhere. Therefore, debating is very important in this tradition. Now, the question is, how do you know who is saying the right thing? Well, when it comes to pramana, which means of knowledge. That means a method by which I come to the truth. Okay. How do you know which pramana is right? Well, it has to meet two conditions. The first condition is anadhikatam. Anadhi gatam. And I'm just going to draw an ear here. Okay? So what is anadhikatam? It means that it is a means of knowledge like no other. That means your ear alone can provide something that no other means of knowledge can do. The nose cannot provide what the ear can provide. The eyes cannot provide what the ear can provide. That means it is unique. Unique. Okay? It is the only means of knowledge. That means there's no other means of knowledge that can do what the ear can do. In fact, all of our microphones, they're just replicating what the ears do. Okay? So in this sense, Vedanta is the only means of knowledge that can show you something that is, in fact, there are other means of knowledges that can show you something that is beyond perception and inference. Okay, in other words, what I perceive, something that is beyond what I perceive, and what I infer, it is also beyond what I can infer. In other words, Vedanta, how is it unique? It can do something that my five senses cannot do, and it can do something that mere use of inference or logic without the proper means of knowledge it can't do. Abhaditam. Abhaditam is, even though it's unique, it should not be able to be contradicted by an opposing standpoint. In other words, if I say to you, in other words, it is non-negatable. Non-negatable. In other words, whatever the ear picks up, whatever evidence, data the ear picks up, it should not be able to be negated by a different opposing standpoint. So if I say to you, you're alive, can you contradict that? Assuming you're not on LSD? Okay? You're alive. If you were to say, no, I'm not, you will be in a self-contradiction mode, because to be alive means you're standing vertical and you're responding. Just to say yes or no means you are alive. In other words, the means of knowledge should be unique, and whatever data it sends you, if you analyze it logically from different standpoints, you cannot break down the logic. You cannot break it down from any standpoint, assuming you spend time looking into the validity of its statements. So this means it requires a relatively, intelligent mind. You cannot just say, oh, I don't care, whatever. So this means we need to have some thoughtfulness to see the validity of any means of knowledge, which is why Vedanta is not for everyone. Really, it's not for everyone. Not many people want to think. They want to feel something good in their heart, in their emotions. This is fine, but it needs to you need to rise above that. 1 + 1 = 2. Can you contradict that unless you're a child and you're going to say 11? No. Okay, so this is abhaditam. It's non-contradictable, assuming you go through the logic. Okay, and then mananam. So, if Shravanam is deeply ascertaining what I have heard, then Mananam, which means having heard what I've heard, do I understand what was said? Having heard it, do I actually understand what Vedanta is talking about? And how do you know whether you understand? Well, the tradition is there. This is where you need someone that's alive. A dead guru cannot help you here. In other words, the moment you open your mouth, then you will see where you're coming from. The moment you kind of make yourself vulnerable to show your flaws, to show your kind of vulnerabilities, to have a conversation. Teacher loves that because you're exposing yourself and you're giving yourself a chance to recognize how firm is that knowledge there. Therefore, mananam involves removing all of those concerns, all of those needs to not kind of communicate, to hold it back, to keep it like, yep, I've understood. So you need to just flourish. You need to expose yourself. You need to present yourself. Only then you really know if you're totally comfortable sharing it. Until then, it gives you an impression that it's well ascertained. But when you open your mouth, not only can the teacher see where you're coming from, but besides the point, you can see where you're coming from. Really, for the last 5 years, even longer, I constantly made one commitment. A commitment that's constant for me is to engage with the teacher. Constantly ask questions, basic questions, because it's not about the questions. It's about, do I feel comfortable even having a conversation about this topic? If I don't feel comfortable, why don't you feel comfortable discussing yourself? Because we're talking about you. We're not talking about something over there. We're talking about you. I don't feel comfortable talking about myself. This is strange. So I made a commitment. I'm going to expose myself no matter what. I'm going to embarrass, and I did so many times in front of the class. I'm going to show every bit of ignorance that is here. Not once, constantly. Even nowadays, I meet twice a week. I love that. Made it a habit for many years now. And it's the greatest tool to help you see where are you hiding behind. What are you hiding behind? There are many small bubbles that we hide behind, and they are so hard to detect until you open your mouth, until you have a conversation, especially in front of the class, which is the hardest thing, but it is the most healing thing. So one has to have that courage to say, you know what, I'm here to solve the truth, I'm here to solve the problem, I'm here to get clear, I'm gonna go for it. Therefore, Mananam isn't just removing doubts, as you've heard before. It is exposing yourself, being vulnerable. Constantly. Can hardly wait till I go back to class after this retreat, back to my teacher, and continue exposing myself. Because there's great joy in Vidya Ananda. What is Vidya Ananda? Every time you open your mouth and you get more clear, that ignorance that was obstructing my connection to Ishvara gets removed. That's why you're happy every single time you clear something up in you, because you get closer to the reality. That is Vidya Ananda. This is why people love knowledge, especially when you get clear. Okay? So this means there is, some vulnerability involved here. This is the real work. And finally, Nididhyasanam, it is contemplating what you understand. What is contemplation? Contemplation, Nididhyasanam, is taking one topic and asking the question, how is this related to another topic? How is Sopadika Atyasa related to Vyavaharika? That means empirical reality. How is Maya related to Ishvara? How is awareness related to the world? How is the Jiva related to Ishvara? How is Ishvara related to time and space? That means you ask one question, how is this related to that? That is how understanding takes place. Connections, connections, connections. All connections. How is this matching this? How is this? What place does this have in respect to this? That is the mark of a great master, right? One who understands. How do all these things fit? So Nididhyasanam is asking a question. What is pramana? What is a means of knowledge? What does it mean, a means of knowledge which cannot be negated? What does it mean, a means of knowledge that I cannot negate? What does it mean? And then you think about it. One simple question. What does it mean to say, to deeply ascertain a topic? What does it look like to deeply ascertain a topic? Okay? Now tomorrow, we will discuss something very important, and that is, even if you've deeply ascertained the topic or understood the reality, there are certain gradations of understanding, and this will answer earlier on, why do those who understand the knowledge, some of them have no devotion, and the rest, some of them have a lot of devotion. What makes that difference between one who has devotion for this and one who is just kind of understood, but it's just an understanding. In other words, the more you understand, the deeper your devotion grows. The more feeling genuinely comes in respect to your love for creation. That is when you start to genuinely feel love for Ishvara. Until a certain stage, it's just knowledge that has taken place. Devotion comes a little bit later, and that requires work. And we will see what it takes to come to that devotional stage. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.